Here, could you hit the, we have an agenda for that? I think we're just winging it.
There is an agenda.
There we go. What do we want to use? Yeah. Ready, that must be you.
No, I think it was on.
It was on?
Yeah, it was good.
Thank you.
Okay, it's on the other side.
Yeah, I think that's somebody else.
For you, I don't see,
I think that's us.
I don't see agendas unless they're attached.
I think the other thing to do is.
No, I don't see it.
There you go.
There we go. Oh, there it is. Oh, no, that's. All right, let's get started with John's report.
Thanks, Randy. You should have, there was hard copy of the reports here we passed them around. We're still in process right now, of closing out the 2023 books. We'll be doing that for the next 60 days. Our new auditors are on board now. We officially retained them. At this point, we're still, like I said, we're closing out 2023. It's still too early at this point to do 24 results yet.
Yeah.
The next couple months, we'll start talking about 24 results as we're winding up 23. What you do have is an updated sales tax report. We have one sales tax collection left for 23. As of today, we are over $360,000, or almost $360,000 over the 2023 budget. So we're guaranteed at least that over budget. There's one more collection to come in. That collection, the prior year was $260,000. So, our year-to-date overages of the 350 plus that number, we're projecting as will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $550,000-$600,000 over budget. So, that's just going to depend on what that and number ends up. So, with that portends for 2024. Our sales tax budget for 2024 at this point seems right on track. I'll continue to update as we're looking at 24, but we try to budget that number rather conservatively. It's seem to be right on schedule with 23 and 24. Once again, closing out 23, interim numbers look like things are relatively break even for 23. There's we're still waiting on a lot of bills to come in before the end of the year. We're still measuring all of our receivables, particularly with grants. So, those numbers can change here, but I don't think there's anything alarming one way or another with 23 report at this time. I think kind of the status quo type of year, which is good. I mean, that's cool, right? So, I think that's the way we test it. So, that's it. I gave you the contingency balance for 2023, $305,000. One of these transfers here, you'll see tonight, we're adding some money back into contingency as the departments start. We'll see over the next couple of months, for those of you who haven't been through this year-end process, at this time of year, we start getting all the year-end closeout budgetary transfers from the prior year. So, typically in March, we'll have 2 finance meetings. It's kind of standard. I haven't discussed with Randy yet. We'll figure out that schedule.
We should have 3.
You can have 3.
Many finance.
Need more chocolate?
Yes.
Imagine my space. Are they saying I'm not sweet enough? Sorry.
And so you have 2 because that's closing out the 22.
So the 23 fiscal year. So how it works is we have a report that's due to the state on April 30th. We want all the budgetary transfers approved at the April common council meeting. So you have some coming in, basically late March, and typically we've had that second March finance meeting at the end of March. It could be, prior to April caucus meeting. I think we've done that before, so it could be the way it plays out in this year. But so we get all the budgetary transfers approved at the April council meeting. We get them in our financial system. Everything's cleaned up, and that helps us prepare the reports to the state on April 30th. At that point, we'll have our interim numbers for 23, subject to audit. This will be the first year of the order, so hopefully, keep our fingers crossed, the numbers won't change too much, but typically they haven't changed very much at all.
Okay.
Right.
Absolutely.
Why did the mortgage tax come in so far below budget? Is that a trend amongst other municipalities?
So as of right now, it's 456. We do expect additional for 3 months, right? So we're probably gonna end up somewhere in the neighborhood of, maybe plus or minus 600,000, but we're gonna be under. I think what you saw is, the inventory kind of dry up a little bit.
Yeah.
The housing prices are still up there, so it's not, a deflation of housing prices. It's just the sales have dropped. The prior year, in 2022 was kind of a high water point for us in terms of mortgage tax. So, we tried to budget to 23. We actually, I'd have to double check the numbers, but I believe when we budgeted 23, it was actually below the 22 number, trying to be conservative there, and then the 23 kind of fell off quite a bit. So I think if you check the 24 budget, we brought that number down again, just to once again just try to be conservative. In general, we try to be conservative on both sides of the equation, right, with the revenues and the expenses, particularly the revenues, because a lot of these have no control, right? We are, the recipient of these funds that are not really in our control. So, it's really a matter of inventory and sales. There's the question of that. Kind of leads into all the housing issues this common council discusses on the regular, right? So,
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else for John?
I did have a question, but it's relating to something later. It's related to a budget transfer. So I think it's
Sure.
on that.
Right. First item is budget transfer and Parks and Recreation to reconcile accounts. It reads, year-end internal budget transfer of $18,369 to reconcile department accounts. Because it's within the department, there is no financial impact. So does anybody have any questions about this one? If not, then your motion to discuss. Second,
Second.
Chair Pasty. Is there any discussion?
Well, it was pretty straightforward to me.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, it's a good thing. Thank you. That is a good thing.
Can you just make a note on this one, that's a 2023 budgetary transfer? I'm going to make similar comments on some of these because you're now seeing a mix of 23 and 24. So.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously.
These are all three.
The next item is a budgetary transfer to reconcile 2023 budget accounts for the wastewater treatment facility. Because it's within the account, there's no overall financial impact. So that can make sure. So that should be zero.
That should be 0. And also, it should start to 23 as well.
Yeah.
So we are spending less on sludge this year?
We're going to hire a grade of sludge.
Very gritty, or it wasn't gritty, I guess.
All right, so request the attach the following budgetary transfers for the wastewater treatment facility to balance accounts. There is no overall financial impact for these transfers. This is a 2023 budgetary item. Do we have a motion to discuss? Steve Shabbat, seconded by Sarah Pansky. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item. Transfer, this is from Department of Public Works. Purpose of the transfer is to move funds from the 2023 insurance recovery revenue back into operating accounts. It is also to cover the cost for DPW retirement resignation payouts. And so I was clear on this one. This is zero financial impact.
No, this is the full impact, the full transfer is financial impact.
So it's 90. They're both in contingency.
Yes. That's 85 and change. I'll give you the impact.
Isn't it 92 and change?
Do you have different?
Big numbers after that. Shane.
Eighty-six, 619,
86,
619,
619.91.
This is a 2024 budgetary transfer.
Sorry, you have to have worded there.
I would just say this is a 2024 transfer. Yes.
So it's transferring from the leftover money from 23 into 24, so that's a 24.
Yeah, essentially what it is, they have, when they'll receive insurance recoveries for damaged equipment, and that happens with some frequency in that department. In this case, they received some money later in the year. They didn't have time to spend before the end of the year. That money rolled in the fund balance.
Yep.
And now they're, looking for it on the other side to take it out and use it for what it was intended for. That's a small portion of it. Your other is, they have a number of retirement separation service. So, we've traditionally drawn from contingency. I would say, later in the years, if they have more, we may want to look at whether or not there's any savings within the department's payroll lines to help offset some of the draw from contingency, because the contingency balance, the starting balance in 24 is not what it was in prior years. So, we have to be mindful of that as we progress during the year. I'll look for opportunities to try to replenish it where we can, but yeah, we should be judicious in how we use it this year.
All right. So it reads 2024 transfer to move 2023 insurance recovery revenue to 2024 operating account to purchase streetlights, also to cover the cost of retirement resignation payouts for 4 employees. The estimated financial impact is $86,619.91. Motion to discuss. Testy. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, then, we are moving to a budget transfer in the Kingston Fire Department. Kingston is also within accounts, so there's zero financial impact. It's 23 also.
Yes, it is. This is the one for 99 through 1880.
Yep.
Yes, that's 2023 year.
And it says that.
Yeah, and the only thing I would like to do is to strike the amount taken to put into hospital, medical, and optional.
Right, because it doesn't say what the,
Yeah, I handle all of those.
what
So
the expenses.
this is,
Thank you. It's still zero financial.
Still zero.
All right. So this one. So this is the fire department, internal departmental transfer to cover overages. This is a 2023 budgetary item, zero financial impact. Motion to discuss. Steve Shabbat, second.
I'll second.
Mary Pesky, any discussion?
This is the one for 99,000.
Yeah, we just reduced that number to 82 change. Grade, we want to change 81,245.72.
And you reduced it because,
Because he was transferring money into hospital medical insurance and hospital, and I do that on a citywide basis. I do those transfers, so it's
So it's
a
not-
repetitive it would have been a
I see.
repetitive transfer.
okay,
It wouldn't have done any harm, there was no need to do it, so.
I'm sorry, this is for benefit coverage?
Part of that, yeah, the benefit coverage piece I'm removing because I do a transfer for all the departments, for hospital, medical, dental, optical, and then state retirements.
Okay. Thank
Because
you.
the departments really have no control over those costs.
yeah, right.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. It's 3 sheets there. If you would please keep it together.
Together,
We will. All right, the next one is also in the fire department. This is transfer from A13410.4589 to the following, to service contracts and salaries. And because it is also within the fire department budget, zero financial impact. This is 23 or
23. And this is simply a grant rate, this is the cover grant reimbursable cost.
that's 14,000. I'm looking at the right.
Yeah, 14,000.
139.
All right, motion to discuss.
I'll move it.
Sarah Paskey. Second, Peter Andrews. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. On a roll. And the next item has to do with hiring a temporary employee in Parks and Rec. Mayor Noble, join us at the table.
Thank you.
First, you want some chocolate?
No, I'm good. Thank you, though. Happy Valentine's Day. So this request is related to our Parks and Recreation Director who's going to be out for an extended period of time. And so during that time, I'd like to be able to hire a temporary employee who would work in essence 20 to 25 hours a week to be able to keep the department, moving and keeping things supervised and keeping, our projects and our staff kind of on track. And so I think if there's more interest in kind of diving a little bit deeper into the details of why this is happening, I would just have to ask that we go into executive session if we want to talk about that. But maybe we don't need to, I just wanted to mention that. So
And is there a fixed period of time?
it's basically about 4 months.
Oh.
Yes, and so that funding there is enough to pay someone about part-time for 4 months-ish,
Right,
give or take.
and this is coming from contingency.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there isn't money in the department's budget to be able to cover this at this time, because we still have to pay the employee that's there to
Of
be
course.
out.
Right, that's
during the
right.
timeframe, so
Okay.
there have to be additional funds to the department.
And so would this be a management confidential position still?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
What duties does this new position have that can't be currently handled by a deputy?
We don't have a deputy
Oh.
in Parks. Yeah, there is. So there is no deputy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And is there a qualified person who
Yeah,
you feel will be
yeah, we're
able
going through
to
that process now. If the council
approve
approves, we
this
haven't,
and,
we
right.
can kind of further explore that, but we haven't formally done anything yet, because obviously, want to have the money secured before we make an official.
We don't have a list for that.
No, and so there's no civil service list for that position at this time, so it would basically be a recruitment effort and then, a temporary positions through civil service can only, for about 6 months, obviously, we don't need to go that long. And so, but in essence, they would have all of the duties and powers of the current, director,
But just on an interim basis.
just on an interim basis.
Interim, but are they internal? Internal?
Yeah, no, not interim.
Job posting.
Sort of, yeah.
But
Is
it will
this
go
a
through
goal to
civil
be
service.
a permanent fixture as a part-time
No.
deputy director?
4 months,
Just for the 4 months.
and they would report directly to you.
So I guess we would consider this an appointed position. Right?
Yes, correct, there's no list, right? It would basically be for civil services perspective, temporary employees, so like I have, through civil service law, we have the ability to appoint someone to any position in city government for less than 6 months at any time, for any
To
reason.
fill any gap without.
Fill
going
any
through the
gaps,
whole
kind of think of
process.
it as like a temp employee.
Yep.
That's kind of what, and we've had to do this before when there are other critical kind of like non-management positions. This is the first time we've ever had to do this in my tenure here for a management level position. So it's a little bit unique. But it's, we've had to do this for like a secretary being out or some person who has a vital role in the department. We've had to do temporary hires. But generally, this is the first we've ever done this.
Well, I'm just wondering if we, I have one question, but I think we would need to go into executive session.
We could do that.
Okay, I think we should.
That we enter executive session
For the purpose of discussing employee personnel.
for the purpose of discussing employee personnel.
Second,
It was,
Andrews, everyone in favor?
And I have to specify who will,
Yeah, so we invite the mayor and we invite John Toohey to stay.
and
yeah,
council.
everybody
And
knows.
council.
Council.
He snuck up on me.
It's not really going anywhere. Sitting right here.
Oh, yeah, we have that. So yeah, Michelle, do you want to call in? Somebody just can, somebody call Michelle.
Here, I got you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Sorry to disrupt everybody. All right. Do we have the report reads hiring a temporary employee in the Parks and Recreation Department while the director is OUT. Estimated financial impact $18,225. Motion to discuss.
Second.
Make comments, we make clear it's to the 24 budgetary transfer.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item, the ambulance update.
Okay, thank you very much. As I promised last month that we would be back to just kind of give everyone an update. Folks remember at the last finance meeting, we approved the hiring of 8 firefighters, and I'm happy to report that as of Monday this week, we had 8 firefighters start. So we were able to hire off of our civil service list. We really we had 15 people on the list. We were only able to get down to like the 95s because there's just so many people that scored 100, which was great. So we ended up hiring out of that list for the firefighters, and 3 happened to be paramedics and 5 were EMTs. And so we were very happy with that list. We hired some really great people. And again, they all started, their onboarding is they have to have some health testing and fitness things done. They've got to get some training, but generally speaking, they'll be on the street. They're here this week. And so
Nice.
that's very positive. And so that's where we are with hiring. One of the things that we also talked about last time was that we were going to be doing an RFP for the billing services that are needed as a part of ambulance service. And so we were told you were going to put that up for an RFP, and we did. And so it went out, I think, the next day after our finance meeting, and they're due back in the first week in March. And so what that's going to do is help us solicit all of the different insurance billing firms that are out there. We think that there are at least a handful or more that exist, and we know that a couple have already reached out saying that they're interested, and so I think we'll get more than one response for sure. They, once that's done, the Cambridge Consulting, which I think we may mention to them, they have helped us prepare the RFP. They're kind of experts in this because the biggest thing is we want to be able to know like what questions we should be asking to be able to make sure that we're then finding the best billing company that is going to follow all the right procedures. And so they are also going to help us review those to be able to then and help make a recommendation to us as to which company is the best to be able to help us get into contract with and then be able to actually start billing. One of the things we talked about last time is that we are very hopeful that bringing someone on in April will allow us to actually do back billing, hopefully all the way back to January. And so to do that, we have to be able to keep really good records. And so there's something in the fire department called PCR, and that is basically the electronic document where we are capturing all of the patient's information. And so that's when we come to your house, you need to go with us, you need medical help, we take your name and your address and your phone number, and we talk about what happened to you and the type of services that we provide, and that's all captured. And so these PCRs are what are used by the billing company to be able to then see, was there anything billable during this call? And so we had that in place previously, and so come January 1, when we officially launched, we already here, we already got it ready, and we've used it. And so up to now, I think this was effective as of yesterday, the chief told me that we have we've created 552 PCRs in the last month and a half. That's about 12 and a half a day on average. Out of those, though not everyone chooses to go to the hospital. Sometimes they can decline, even though we say you should go to the hospital. They say, I don't want to go to the hospital. You then need to sign this form that says I've declined, to go. About 20% refuse transport. So out of that number, the 552, about 20% of those, the chief said, generally, on average, refuse. But in general, I think what that says is that we've been pretty busy. In average, we probably transported 350 people to date to the hospital. And so we're very excited to be able to have some more staff, to be able to help, our current staff who have been, working a lot of overtime to be able to help meet the need. The last thing that I wanted to mention, and if you have any questions, is that we are and have been working with Cambridge Consulting to do kind of the second phase of this, which was to take our plan that the chief created about, that we've talked about. We think that we need 2 ambulances. We think that we need to hire staff to be able to have those 2 ambulances. We think that we need advanced life support services in both of those based on call volume. And so they have and are continuing to run all of that. They've pulled all of the data from Ulster County. They're creating maps for us. They're looking at response time. And they're going to be able to provide us and you a real detailed report on what and the future of ambulance service could be like for us to help make sure that we're on the right track, to make sure that we're going to be staffing the right number of ambulances based on our call volume. And so we expect that we will have that full report to you by the March finance meeting. So that as we kind of go step by step through our decision making, that you'll have that. And then in April, we'll have potentially a billing company on board, which will then really help frame up kind of what the next steps are with potential future hiring. We'll then kind of have a plan that's been reviewed. We will then have revenue numbers that have been brought in, and then we'll have a couple of months of actual data, from this winter into spring that we'll be able to actually test against. So it's not hypothetical. We can actually do this is what we were able to bill for in January. This is what we were able to bill for in February and how much.
Yeah.
And that will help us decide, about feeling really comfortable taking that next step of fully staffing up the ambulance system, as we talked about, which that magic number may be 16 employees. Right now we've hired 8, but we again need more data to kind of take that final step. And so that's kind of where we're at, and happy to answer any questions. Really, that's right.
So my first question, so of the percentage of the people who refuse the service, do they say because of do they state it's because they feel they do not medically need to go to the hospital, or do they explicitly state I can't afford an ambulance ride?
It's generally not the latter, because we don't charge, we generally won't charge, if someone can't afford to pay. Our fire department service is, we're gonna get you to the hospital. And so generally it's more, kid falls down, mom calls 911, we show up at the scene and we realize that they really just needed a Band-Aid or a referral to a doctor the next day to have their, arm, and there's a decision that's mutually made that, going to the hospital, if, the parents don't want to go once the kid calms down and everyone. That's generally, that's the reason why people don't go. It's not, at least we haven't had it's because of the not being able to pay for it.
It's not deemed an emergency situation
By the patient.
by the patient.
We always recommend people go to the hospital.
Of course.
That is the advanced care facility, and we always think that people should get checked out.
Right.
And so but again, it's part of the law that, they are able to opt out, even though we really do encourage people to go.
Okay.
Can you bill insurance even if you don't transport?
So those are questions that we have for our billing company. Those are things that, there are certain types of calls that we may be able to bill for, like car accidents. When we go and we need to use our jaws of life to pry open doors, they may be billable, separate and apart from someone going to the hospital. But someone we come to, we provide a Band-Aid or a brace, and then they choose not to go to the hospital. I'm not sure we're able to bill for those services. through insurance. But again, our companies that we bring on will be able to help more accurately answer those questions because I'm not an expert on that.
So this kind of piggybacks off of
Yeah.
Drew's, but what exactly is billable? Like, are we billing them, like you said, for the jaws of life? Is that something that the fire department, you or John designates that this cost, like man-hour cost? Like I get, if we give them a drug, it's the cost of the drug likely, that makes sense. But are we charging man hours?
So again, that, we don't know. That will really be up to, when we work to find a billing company who is a professional in this, these are the questions that we can ask them when I bring them to you. Is that, understanding, what is Medicaid eligible, what is Medicare eligible, what is private insurance eligible? They know all of that to the T. We don't. As a fire department, that's not going to be what we do. Our job is to be able to accurately detail what we did.
Mhm.
Whether it ends up being eligible for reimbursement or not is then kind of put onto the private, billing company to decide, is there a Medicare, Medicaid insurance code for what service we offered?
I see.
Our job is to just be able to very accurately detail everything that our employees do. And then we really leave it up to another company. Like, we provide the service, and if we're able to by chance get reimbursed for that service, great. If not, this is the public service we're providing. And I think that that's kind of how these municipally run models work.
Okay, last question.
Yep.
So if somebody doesn't have insurance and refuses to pay,
Yeah.
is that something that we would send to collections or add to their tax bill? Or is that a billing
So
company?
generally, it's a billing company question, but we as a city would set up that policy and tell the insurance billing, will we be charging people co-pays? Will we, if people can't pay, will we send them to collections? I mean, generally, our thought is no, we're not going to send them to collections, but again, we have
You
to.
said that.
Yeah.
Force them into the ambulance.
Yeah, and state law really does also have very clear stipulations. I'm not even sure, like, private ambulance companies can send people officially to collections. I just don't know the answers to that.
Okay,
But we will be exploring all of that in the months to come. And we'll have very clear guidelines and policies and procedures and John.
Yeah. I can just add, I mean, really, we are, when we respond to calls, we're collecting data. We're collecting data on our worksheets. And I know we've touched on this before. We have an RFP that's out right now for these billing companies. And it's a very extensive RFP in terms of the qualifications of these billers that we're looking for. So whoever we retain is going to be a certified expert in the field of EMS billing, right? So they'll know exactly what to bill for, how we can bill, and then there may be some decisions, like the mayor said, in our Cambridge Consulting, when we had conversations, and they alluded to that we may have some decisions to make on, what do we do with the non-insurance eligible services, right? So, the mayor gave you some insight into his line of thought. I think we're all on the same page. But I think we'll have to fine tune all those micro decisions, when we bring a billing company on, but I'm confident we're gonna get a very qualified biller.
thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Drew?
John, would you be able to share the RFP with folks just so that they can get a sense of all of the
Yeah, that would be
detailed
great.
questions that we asked?
Yeah, it's,
In the number of hires, how many bilingual ultimately did we hire?
Yeah, and so a couple bilingual, 3 women out of the 8. We currently have 1 woman that works for the fire department. So we have quadrupled the amount of, and there was, I think, some real variety of diversity in terms of, kind of where people, their life experiences and how they came to be interested in this job. And, some came from working in EMS, some came from, in different cities, and some have come from other backgrounds that I think are, whether it be military or other types of public service. So I think, as we get to bring the fire department in here to get to meet some of you all, I think you'll be happy with the collection. Again, civil service, we still have to pick these people from the top lists, and so we're still very constricted with who we can choose, but I think that in the list that we had, you know, we were able to get a good assortment of folks.
Are any city residents?
Yes, multiple,
Wow.
yes.
That's great.
Yes, I mean, I can't say all, but many
Great.
were city residents.
So before we started the ambulance service, we were not collecting money for our services that related to emergency health issues. Is that right?
Correct, so when, 30 years ago, we started doing EMS service as a city fire department. And so since then, you know, we would show up at every medical call, provide immediate first aid, whether it's bandages, wraps, splints, neck braces, you know, whatever you could think of, right? We would provide those and never bill for any of those services, just, it was just a public service.
And so will the other vehicles in the department show up to some issues, or is it always going to be our ambulance that shows up at a health issue?
We will always,
Your Andrew?
at this point, we are continuing to do the co-response. So engine 1, engine 2, engine 3 will still go to all calls with the ambulance coming behind it. And, you know, I think that for a couple of reasons, the chief can explain, you know, the benefits of that. But I think that that is a model that seemingly has worked really well in Houston. And so at this point, we plan on, and I think that that's one of the things that we want to just get across with kind of the staffing is that we currently have minimum manning of 10 firefighters. Some shifts have a few more than 10. I think 2 had 12, 2 had 13. The point of adding this new service is to not dilute the number of firefighters that are actually assigned to firefighting, but to then add this service on top of that so that, you know, as our city continues to grow, we don't want to harm our ability to respond to fires and other types of life-threatening emergencies, but still now have this ambulance as a backup. And again, as by hiring people who are also firefighters, we're actually adding a number of firefighters available in a real crisis situation.
Great, should all that, have that RFP in your inbox.
Okay, thank you.
Mike,
The last month, the chief mentioned that they were waiting on the DEA for a certain drug to be certified as the next level of service.
Yes.
Has that arrived or been any
Yes,
progress?
shortly, a few days after finance last month, we were fully certified and are now running, based on the number of paramedics, we have 1 ALS ambulance. And so we have 1 ALS and 1 BLS ambulance. There are, I think, 1 shift where we have enough paramedics right now. Before hiring, we had 3 paramedics already. And so there's occasionally 1 out of the 4 rotations of shifts we would have 2 paramedics on, and then on those shifts, we basically had 2 ALS ambulances, because as long as, now that we have the DA certification, both of our ambulances have the appropriate lock boxes and all of the things needed to qualify. So whenever we have that second paramedic on shift, we're able to actually run the 2 ALS buses. And this report that we're, you know, going to be giving you is also going to help break down the number of kind of like ALS calls versus the number of basic life support calls, which will also hopefully show us, you know, that, you know, how many ALS ambulances we need, you know, versus BLS, things like that.
Right.
Thank you.
Good.
oh, good. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Appreciate
Thank you very
thank you
much.
all very much for your time tonight. Yeah, happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Right here or there?
Wait,
That's over there.
Good both places.
Presuming we have visitors for the second item this morning, so let's switch, it's okay?
Yeah, we can
Switch to
switch.
2 items?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to discussing the sale of 38 Oak Street. Talking about what, $2 billion here?
Yes. So I'm just going to give a brief intro and then just let Ryan and you take over. So this has been a 2-year project of mine, which is to find a productive use for 38 Post Street. It's a small vacant commercial property downtown. I had put out a request for proposals, I think in my second month while I was in the city, in 2022. We did not receive any qualified proposals. I reissued a request for proposals, last spring, summer, and, this time around, received a lot more interest, and received a total of 3 qualified proposals. An evaluation committee, looked through the proposals and determined that Gene Sheen was the best one by far. I'll just note that Alderwoman Hirsch was on the evaluation committee. I think they've got a great vision, and so I'll let them run through this proposal.
Great, come on to the table.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you for
Jean
waiting.
Shin, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate you putting us on your agenda. Is that right? Okay. I mentioned I'm a visual artist, and I'm based in Hurley, New York. I've been here since 2010. Really coming from Brooklyn, running out a storage space and needing more expensive art practice. I fell in love with being in Hudson Valley in this area, in particular Kingston. So it drew me. And now, 14 years later, I've still been making lots of sculptures that are public facing, need more storage. But when this property came up, in the next image, what was so interesting to me was the ability that it could be more central to a vibrant arts community. And I was so drawn to the fact that it's walking distance to the waterfront, and there's so many other arts organizations nearby, and that it wouldn't be just a space for production and studio, but really a satellite space in which viewers can come by and be curious. And I do a lot of work in the public sector, so the idea of giving back to the city and giving back to the public who may not expect to see art one day and meander in the space. So our proposal, of course, is we had fallen in love basically with this whole structure. And so much of my work is restoring things that people have left behind, forgotten about, or even discarded. Feels like fits all those categories. And so the work is to restore it, to give it some love and care. So we are trying to do major preservation of this building, not tear it down. We're kind of in love with this barrel vault, it's a wooden structure. And so that restoration and renovation is something we're committed to doing. We put together a budget, looked at some numbers, and it's almost $250,000, including the $10,000 that we're asking the city for the sale of it. But that investment is sort of long-term. Much of the work and much of that budget is going to environmental remediation. This is a complex and challenging work. We're committed to doing that work well and right, because a lot of my work is environmental justice. So this is hitting that note square. So I want to do the work, do it right. But ultimately, in the grand scheme, I want to set up an LLC called Barrel Arts Vaults. It would be a space in which I will curate and bring curators, underserved, whether it's women, artists, people of color, people who are centered around environmental issues and ecology. I feel like that's the ethos of my work. It's the ethos of this place that bridges, historical restoration and the love of place. And so that's what I want to be doing. Ultimately, it would be like an artist archive and a storage. My work, you can see examples of it permanently or temporarily, from the New York subways to public school systems. I've worked with the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs to Olana more locally, the state parks, as well as Art Belmont and Thomas Cole, Storm King, etc. So my practice is vast. I work with museums as well as doing gallery exhibitions. But the nature of my practice is that I accumulate lots of materials, and it's very labor intensive. And it takes years of time to set things up, to take inventory. So space is a big component. But most of my projects are across the country dealing with issues of place and community engagement. And I feel like that's what I could do in Kingston. I unfortunately have this amazing partner, with my husband, architect. So we're a duo, and he and I have restored many buildings. And I want to hand off to Brian to get into his practice, but also what he has put together as our proposal for renovation.
So I have a practice, it's based in Brooklyn, but we've also done work in Ulster County, and the image in the middle is actually the Gene Studio in Hurley that we renovated and are continuing to renovate. It's an ongoing project, but my practice is varied, but it's done quite a bit with historic preservation and oddly have not been on the environmental engineering side, but have had to work on a number of environmental sites, gas stations, former auto repair shops, things like that. So it's something we're familiar with, and I was able to kind of engage a little bit in some due diligence before we did the proposal. And what we've been doing since submitting the proposal is a lot of diligence. So, we had surveys done, we had title searches done, we had double and triple reads on the phase one environmental that was done. So that the process itself has revealed a lot. One important thing was that it was an existing egress easement on the property that no one knew about, which is significant because part of the structure will need to be demolished. So the building is slightly smaller than what we anticipated to give access to an easement to Broadway, and then obviously understanding a little bit more about the environmental issues, about the work that did happen and the work that still needs to happen. So so that's what we've done to date. And this is our team. So we've been working with some of these are probably people you all know. Mike Moriello has been helping on the legal, and then he brought in Dean Summer, who is an environmental attorney out of Albany, who has a lot of experience in this and actually had some past history with the site. Wayne Graff helped us with the title and was influential in getting some of the information about the easements. Chris L did the survey and helped us kind of document what that easement was. And then we have not engaged yet, but we have proposals from Labella Environmental Engineers and Henry Zell related to the excavation and demolition needed on the site. This is our current kind of operating budget. So today we've gone out of pocket without any agreement around $12,000 to get here to the diligence. And that's why we're here, is that we're getting nervous about going forward without some sort of commitment, because it sounded like we were sort of a selective proposal, but I know it needs to go before full council review. We also had the unexpected item were some of these prior to possession expenses. So the need for the phase two environmental with vapor encroachment studies, the resolution of the easement, it is an existing life safety issue. It's like there's literally egress that should be provided, and there's a big concrete structure in the middle of it, or concrete block structure. And so that's something that's going to have to be corrected, and then environmental legal fees, and then closing legal fees. So we think that gets us up to closing, and then beyond that is what we had budgeted for our actual initial renovation. And so overall, that's kind of what we're saying is our working budget. And then, as we said before, with that understanding of that investment, we were offering a $10,000 purchase price for the property. The nature here is that in our meetings with, we met previously with the mayor and with Bartek, we try to evaluate, what's the common goals here. So to convert a vacant, deteriorating toxic site into a vital space that contributes to the art and culture of Kingston, to do so with limited public investment from the city. Obviously, there's money that has to go into this site, no matter what. Kingston owns it. We are trying to be a partner in that by providing some of those resources, by acquiring the property at low value, but then investing in corrective measures, mediation, to do so in means financially viable for the purchasers, for us too. So to try and mitigate, some of our exposures in that regard. To mitigate future risks to both city and purchaser related to the site and its development, and to utilize qualified professionals. So that's sort of where we are today, and we're hoping to get some favorable support for our proposal from this committee and obviously with the full council. So thank you for your time.
What's your time frame for completing all this if everything goes according to plan?
Well, we thought we were going to close in January.
Yeah, we'd be moving in by now, but then we realized the environmental.
Everything's
time
taken so
and
much
to
longer.
do it well, people it could take a really long time.
Yeah.
And so we've slowed down this idea of it, to say, well, we're gonna do it right, so we're not gonna try to push it, we're gonna say, how long does it take? So it's an open-ended question. I hope it would be a year, but other people have told us it could be longer.
Because
Um,
the phase two takes time, but also we need to be in a position where we sign an MOU with the city even to access the property to get the phase two, because it's invasive investigation. So again, we were perhaps optimistic about that, but it seems like it's a 1 to 2 year project that,
And then the long term we would be there, to continue to make improvements and so on after the initial budget.
Great, and Bartek, how long has this been on the city?
I believe since 2012. Yes, so well over a decade.
It's nice and aged. Okay, Michael and Sarah.
So this will be gallery space or a working studio space?
It's not a working studio because I will continue to have Hurley as a working studio, because it's a satellite in which it's an archive and extra storage. And then open for temporary curated exhibitions. So maybe 4 times a year, upstate, the weekend and art court. And, there's festivals that go on. So I want to contribute to it, but it's not a permanent gallery. That's not my purpose for it. It is really, a very humble space in which people can both look at my archives, see artworks on view, but also really open it up to a person who wants a platform, and doesn't have a space to be showing their works for. So it's not a vanity project on go see Jean Shin's artwork. Right. See my work elsewhere. It's more like I know I connected with so many people from New Paltz as a university and undergrad graduate program of art, and my students from Pratt. So there's so many young people that I mentor who are dying for exhibition spaces, and they hear about upstate New York and they come up, and they, so this will just be contributing to that, just another venue. I feel like I have such great community artists already here who would be interested in doing some projects in that space.
Okay, artists are always looking for opportunities to show.
Yeah, so it's a multi-purpose space when it's down.
I'm saying they're exhibitionists.
And then when it is a moment where people are gathering, that's a place to open up the space.
You done, Michael?
Yep.
Sarah?
Yeah, I just wondered, what's the nature of the remediation that needs to take place? What was there before that's created this toxic situation?
So a little bit unknown. So there was a dry cleaner on Broadway. It was Kingston Laundry. This was, it was all one large kind of conglomerate of multiple parcels. This was the boiler rooms, how we understand it, for that, which in and of itself wasn't a problem, but there was a leaky oil tank. But then the strange part was that when they went to remediate the leaky oil tank, someone had poured, they think, dry cleaning fluid into the tank to get rid of it. So then that's, which made it worse, because petroleum is one thing, but PRCs are, I'm saying that wrong. Is it PCR? Anyway, whatever it is, that's perks, they call it, so that's what showed up in the phase one.
So maybe it was contaminated from the dry cleaning, and that possibility could open up a hole. That's why it's like, well, that would take a long time. And so it's just a can? Okay.
Yeah. So
Although that's a long time.
the city actually had gotten funding for a phase one environmental. The results of it was that there was this evidence of this trace amount. A lot of remediation had been done back in prior to 2012. It was, I think, 2010 to remediate, but it was the site on Broadway got signed off and closed out. The LLC that owned this property got partially into it and then stopped and it went dead. So it's still an open spill report with what they call a P designation, which is potential. So no one really knows, but to know you have to spend $20,000 in investigation.
Yeah, right.
And they want us to do phase two.
No, that's the phase two. That is the phase two.
That is,
Yeah, which is, and it's much more like the phase one is research. The phase two is they have to drill wells and they're going to monitor it over months. And then do vapor testing and whatnot. And the hope is that it was a very limited little thing and it's done, but no one knows. So we're in a position where, we have to also protect ourselves, because we don't want to inherit, a a brownfield site, you know, but that's, you know, that's sort of, that's on us to figure out.
Steve? Yeah. If I could share a little personal perspective here, I live right around the corner from it. And this is a building I have literally walked past 1,000 times at least. And I think every time I walk by it, I say, huh? What is this thing? And I've never seen anybody there that I can even ask, what kind of building is this? What is it used for? What has it been?
Yeah.
I have no idea of the history of it.
Yeah.
All I know is this sounds really great. I mean, there's so much happening in that little bitty neighborhood right there.
Yeah, we love
I think this would be a very cool addition.
Yeah, so all those curious minds. To find out what happened here, and what's the potential that could happen here. That's really the vibrancy that I want to bring.
And the area is thriving right now. You have great influx of people down there who I think would love something like this. Good luck.
Build a tunnel to Graziano's.
Yeah.
True.
So, have you spoken with Kit Potter?
No.
No.
So Kit Potter is the Arts and Culture Director, and if you're bringing in anything art, she's working on an arts and culture master plan. She'd be the person to speak to. Like, you know, she's trying to work at having policies, procedures together to move forward. For anyone coming into Kingston who want to move forward with anything based around gallery or art or anything. So really reach out to her. I should have been the first person that could have been part of a conversation in terms of art galleries.
Yeah.
Now, I heard that you were thinking, you said it's about storage. Storage and gallery space or
So,
multi-use?
we're hoping that the ground level.
There's multi-
Dominant.
Yeah, so what you're not seeing, so there's a very steep drop off. So the corner of the site is at grade, but then you get to the other side, there's a whole other level. So there's a basement level below it. So there's basically the arch space is one, and then there's another level below, which is a full level, and there's some windows inside. So the idea being that the lower level could be storage in the back, and then we could create a front exhibition space. You know, and again, not every day, it's really like gonna be event-driven exhibition.
Yeah, and programs, we
Programs,
want people to
programs,
have
yeah.
a conversation or panel discussion or invite
Right,
artists.
it's not open every weekend like a gallery that's
Yeah,
right, so.
absolutely, like, you know,
Yeah.
Kingston Art Walk is happening, and we would
Yeah.
program something at the same time, with the Old Positive Festival, we program something, you know, to try and.
And add to, but
Yeah,
not be displacing something else or in competition with anything. So yes, it would be really wonderful to know,
Yeah,
like,
was
what's underutilized, what can we do to help and add to,
Yeah.
be a partner.
A lot going on in and around Kingston, like, you know, season. Lots going on downtown.
There's no parking.
Yeah.
No parking.
Yeah, you can imagine. It's more of like a walking path, you know,
Such a
more
great
walking.
Yeah, it seems like it's very dark and streets with this. Are you planning on opening it up to natural light or just?
There'll be some like, but it's supposed to be storage, so when it's open, you have those big skate doors that will bring a lot of light.
Side
Especially the
structures.
side structures have where you can
little
get
block thing on the left, so.
They have big industrial windows. It will have beautiful light. I guess, like,
But
when you
it's
see
really,
Brian's work.
it's very close to the street.
Everything
Yeah, it's
is
very
illuminated.
The last question, asking the council for what, how can Kingston?
Turn around for 1 second.
Yes, so.
Is that the
Well,
same way?
there's a specific ask tonight.
Okay.
So because this is a city-owned property, we need common council approval, basically for this team to take over this property. So I'm asking for approval from the common council to transfer this property for $10,000. That is the specific ask.
Cells.
So,
Yes.
right.
Yes. What did I say? Did I say give?
You said transfer.
Oh, yeah, transfer sell, yes, exactly.
And this property has gone through the standard disposition policy for the city for
Right.
sales,
So
et cetera. Could you put out
Yes, so as a,
proposals, et cetera?
yeah, exactly. So as a commercial property, this administratively, the process was I had to request proposals and solicit proposals. So that was what was.
So you're not asking for that today?
I am asking for it.
You are?
Yes.
We're the realtors.
Ah,
I mean, again, it's up to the committee, but that is what it is.
Right.
And I would say this seems like a real advantage for the city, because right now it's a liability for us. It's not on the tax rolls, all right, it's not, it's an asset. All right, it's an asset that we own, an underutilized asset.
It's a
Sorry.
wonderful.
But it does require, but I'm thinking of the mediation, that the environmental mediation,
Right.
it's something that the city would probably not want to undertake, and the fact that you are willing to do that, I think it's great, and I can see that there is investment that you'll be putting into it, so.
Right.
So.
I noticed appraisal was listed as TBD. Has it not been appraised yet?
So we were asked on day one, and that got us into the whole process. So we approached every reputable commercial appraisal company, and they said that unfortunately, and I don't remember the legal case, but there's a legal case that set the precedent that environmental conditions have to be considered into the appraised value. So they said without the phase two, they can't do an appraisal. So it's this,
Yeah.
that's what got us.
Right.
So we thought, oh,
We
1,
went
2, 3
far.
is an appraisal, we're going. And then we're like, oh, that's the big ticket item, so
Right.
appraisal is one thing, but and then we need an agreement to get access for them to go and do things like drilling and leaving, monitors and things like that. So it became a little, so we actually were trying to get everything packaged before we met, and at a certain moment, it was clear that we need some sort of commitment that this thing is gonna happen, because we're already going out of pocket for a lot of money, so that was sort of kind of what motivated coming tonight. Prior to having the appraisal, but it'll be all part of the package prior to closing that would have to be submitted.
Well, I hope you'll document every single thing and call it an art project and put it on review. Are there any more questions? Okay, then, do we have a motion to discuss?
So motion. Second.
Motion by Steve Shep, second by Michael Tierney. So the report reads authorizing the transfer of 38 posts to Studio Gene Shen Incorporated. Estimated financial impact would be plus $10,000 revenue to the city. Any discussion? Drew?
So we transfer this property. We no longer own it. It becomes yours. Is this the deal?
Yes.
For better or worse.
The land,
And
everything.
then
Oh,
it goes back on the tax roll.
That's for better, yeah.
that's for that.
Because right now, there are no taxes being paid on that.
Correct, it's been big, it's been sitting here for over 10 years. I mean, there are taxes that, that were back on the like when we took the property, not when we took it. There was roughly 28,000 and change in taxes that have accumulated on this property. It's not gonna get paid, unless we get it back on the tax roll, we're not gonna collect taxes on it. It's been vacant, sitting like this for over 10 years. This council passed a policy, disposition policy, and, this committee, Bartek and his group, including Michelle Hirsch, Alderman Hirsch, vetted these RFPs and unanimously selected, who we have here before us tonight. I think to me, it seems like a win-win. I mean, I know there's, some back taxes on the property, but, the advantage here is getting this property back on the tax roll. Sounds like a really productive use of the property. I recommend it myself. Like I said.
Go ahead, yeah.
So this property, will you convert it into like a not-for-profit or something, or is this
It
going
could
to
be, but
be?
that's not the intended plan.
It's not the intended plan.
I mean, as an
But that-
artist,
yeah,
It would matter, because if it becomes a not-for-profit, you don't pay taxes on it. So then that becomes another issue for us. If what we're banking on is to get this as a tax roll, and then it's sold for 10,000, and then it becomes another free piece of property that we just gave out without further thought. Or, you know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah,
asking.
I don't
just because-
intend to turn it to a nonprofit. I've been part of lots of nonprofits. I've donated to nonprofits, not worth it. So I would rather give food programming to my community and have it be something I contribute, as opposed to, unless there's a need and there's another partnership who wants a space and wants to partner with me, then we consider, but today that is not on the table. We want to own it outright and give it as a community gift and open up the studio space for people to show.
And can I just add to, like, I'm not the city assessor, but, just my knowledge of, these type of discussions with the city assessor. And I'd refer you to ask Drew if you want to ask a follow-up question, but, just by a nonprofit entity possessing the property does not by right entitle that property to, or that nonprofit to that tax exemption. It has to be used for tax exempt purposes.
Yeah.
So the extent a property is acquired and, nonprofit ends up taking possession of it, right, they turn it into a nonprofit. Actually, it has to be actively used for nonprofit purposes, but then you have the benefit of a nonprofit entity providing services to the community, right? So,
But
but that's not necessarily part of what
that's,
plan is,
but
but-
that's easy, that's easy, that's within a mission and the act of the nonprofit. So, I mean, you can, I mean, it's that to me, I feel is easily, approved in terms of a nonprofit. If you buy a piece of property for $10,000, fix it up, you turn it, I mean, so many things can happen. Again, you said you did the vetting, I really trust Michelle, I trust the work that has been done. I just feel that asking questions is very important. It's definitely something that we should look, because I have further questions, like how did you go? Who was the RFP for? How did you get it out there? Who knew about this? I didn't know about it, but some certain things is kind of going under the radar. So if there are big, like this, it looks like a beautiful piece of property. I know why, I see why you're interested in it. But, this it's $10,000, giving it to someone that's coming from Brooklyn, you're not from the area, I have a lot.
Actually, I'm from in Hurley, I've been here.
Right, okay, so.
Well,
so you
yeah,
come
for us,
from-
Early, Brooklyn, same thing.
Brooklyn,
Well-
but I just want to make sure that, one, if we have a piece of property that's being sold for $10,000, that it's well thought out and everyone has part in saying what happens to this property, how it's sold, who it's sold to. Again, I know that you did your vetting. I know it's been years off the tax roll. I do have questions, but yeah.
Well,
It's
for
here,
us,
we're here now.
Yeah, I wish it was just the $10,000 property that you're looking at this beautiful vault, but we're not seeing as the contamination and all the legal fees. So we're not even getting to the, like, happy to take the building for 10,000.
Once you fix that building up, you understand how much it's.
No, but the remediation right now is the biggest. hurdle.
Even if you put $250,000 in, you know how much it's gonna cost. I mean, it's gonna really render you with a large,
That is, yeah.
We're taking risk,
Yeah.
So I mean, we could end up with a $500,000 remediation site, and that's our
And
concern right now.
no art storage, no gift to the city and community engagement. So it is the risk that we're taking, and we're still considering that
Yeah,
risk.
I can't comment on the full RFP process, but we saw it it was posted in the Kingston Freeman. We saw it as
Yeah, as
a
a public.
publicly announced RFP in the Freeman. That's why I read about it.
Bartek, what is this currently zoned as?
In the new zoning, it's a T5 neighborhood transit, so all manner of residential and commercial uses.
Michelle?
Hi, thanks Alderman Childress. I just want to address Drew's concerns. This has been in the works for a really long time, and I believe there was like 2 RFPs that went out. The first time we didn't receive any responses. And I think that we did a really good job vetting the project. The property now is, it's sort of a blight on the neighborhood. We want to get these properties back on the tax rolls. Also, when they're off the tax rolls, we're having to make up taxes. The city has to make up taxes to the county and the school district. So it's like costing us money the longer it's off. So I just want to give my full support to this.
Here's one piece of additional background. Before I even issued any RFPs, this property was actually slated to go to the land bank. For, presumably for housing, affordable housing. And, obviously the site is not right for housing and just the rehab costs, made it not a viable concept, so.
Is there any further discussion?
That's all I got for you. But please speak.
Sorry, how do we get their contact? Okay, great, very, appreciate it.
All right, hearing no more discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of transferring, selling this property to Gene Shen Incorporated? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate the work that you do.
I actually got Gene's email, but I'll
Here you go.
Yeah.
And good luck with all of this.
Listen,
Good job.
I got rid of my landline.
Don't forget your computer. Is that
It's
your?
mine.
Yeah, don't forget Bartek. And feel free to leave. We understand totally.
It was very exciting to spend.
I'm sure. All right, Bartek, money movement.
Yes, so this is just a transfer of some unspent grant revenue from last year to my budget for this year, and then also adding a new grant into my budget for this year.
And for Midtown Brownfield, is that the place that's on that dead end street there?
No, this is the, we will be talking more about that soon,
Okay.
but that is not what that is about. This is about designating the Midtown area into a brownfield opportunity area.
Okay, we'll wait.
Yes.
Yeah, Michael.
So this is grant money that was already awarded to the city of Kingston. Is there any expiration date that we are running up against?
All right, do you have a motion to discuss? Michael Tierney, second by Judy Andrews. Any discussion?
Just want to make it clear that this is a 2024 transfer running.
It says from the 2023 to 2024 budget, is that what it is?
No, just say this 2024 internal transfer.
Okay. So is this 2024 internal transfer request transfers unspent private grant funds from the 2023 to 2024 budget? It also adds expected grant expenses and revenue from the New York State Department of State for the Midtown Brownfields Opportunity Area Project. All right, hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. ARPA update.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bartek. Oh, and Bartek,
Thank you, Bartek.
thanks for everything you do.
I'm up for the next agenda item until Reynolds gave me his handout. Pass these around. Do that way, so do this way.
Hey, Bartek.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Where's that latest report?
You, which report?
Oh, yeah, it's the,
Oh.
yeah,
Right.
no, aside of the,
Oh,
budget,
report.
right. Those reports.
Both
You guys
reports.
sign up.
Yes.
All right, Bill Reynolds,
There he is.
update us on ARPA.
How's everybody? Happy
Great.
Valentine's Day. Especially you, Michael.
As in your sign off on your email, I am.
Yes, I am.
They take heart.
Therefore, so the email that Michael referenced, I sent a couple of days ago, and I think John had hard copies that he distributed to everybody. I thought what we do is just walk through the first 2 pages of the document you have. I'll go through it, and then after that, if you have any questions, let me know. The spreadsheet for each category, I think, tells a pretty good story, but why don't we just get to it and then we'll get the questions. So 2024 is a pivotal year for the city of Kingston and ARPA, as the city will need to obligate all funds by the stroke of midnight, December 31st of this year. An obligation defined by the U.S. Treasury Department is an order placed for property and services and entering into contract, subawards, and similar transactions that require payment, for example, a purchase order. Due to change orders, construction contracts requiring more time to complete and shifting resource needs, we've allocated funds to be sure will be properly aligned with the obligation deadline and budgetary and policy goals for the city. Failure to obligate by the deadline could result in the federal government beginning the process of clawbacks by the second quarter of 2025. I want you to know that we're on track to have all funds obligated well before that deadline. In fact, we anticipate that funds will be fully obligated by June of this year. That is our goal. At this point in time, we have $9,837,320.67 obligated and $17,262,975.38 allocated out of the city's total award of $17,301,385. In this context, allocation signifies projects that monies have been assigned to. Just over 38,000 is left to be assigned or allocated.
Party.
As always, we've been committed to promoting all ARPA initiatives via the news media, social media, and our Engage Kingston webpage that showcases the city's ARPA initiatives. The Engage Kingston ARPA page continues to contain all updated information, including all quarterly project and expenditure reports that we are required to file with the U.S. Treasury Department. Let's get started with the grant programs, and after that, we'll take a look at each bucket. Let's starting off with the Affordable Housing Fund Program. The ARPA Affordable Housing Fund is an allocation of $1 million in ARPA funds designed to incentivize the construction of affordable housing units in Kingston. As of this writing, the city announced 5 properties would receive $825,000 in funding. Arts and Cultural Internship Grant Program. Grants were for semesters summer 2023, fall 2023, spring 2024, or summer 2024. Interns are high school undergraduate or graduate students or individuals who will have graduated from high school, college, and graduate school in 2023 or 2024. Of the $48,000 we've allocated, $48,000 has been obligated, and we expect to close out the program this fall. This fall. Business Promotion Grant Program. That's the most recent grant program we did. This is a $50,000 allocation to be divided between 3 successful applicants. The city had received 11 applications and announced that Cuba, MBA, and KWBA would all be grantees. Each is to receive approximately $16,000, $500 to provide publicity for member businesses and the city as a whole. Upon the mayor's request, they've agreed to coordinate their messaging. Community Events Grant Program. Through this program, the city funded 75 events at about $5,000 per event. Grants have been awarded on a rolling basis from a $375,000 allocation. Of this amount, about $358,000 has been obligated, and we expect the program to close out by this month. Applicants were able to apply for up to 5 2023 events at up to $5,000 per event, and the focus was primarily on youth and families. Some people have asked if we're going to be funding any more community events for 2024. The answer is that we won't be able to, since we're closing out the program. You know, the money's dried up. Nonprofit Services Grant Program. 43 nonprofit organizations received up to $25,000 in ARPA funding. The program placed emphasis on entities who engage in human services or demonstrate that they have contributed or can contribute to the psychological, emotional, and physical well-being of Kingstonians. As of this date, we have allocated $1.075 million in grants and obligated $1.075 million. Applicants have until this fall to submit allowable expenses. And finally, the Small Business Grant Program. 149 finalists were selected to receive $7,500 grants. Of these finalists, 8 did not submit required paperwork for reimbursement. The total expenditure for this program is $1,064,106. 86 MWBE owners owned businesses were included in the program. Grantee geographic distribution is as follows: 79 in Midtown, 52 in Uptown, and 18 downtown. And all of this work was accomplished by the Grants Management Office. A very diligent group of people. I think everybody would agree. Economic recovery plan categories. Again, attached is the spreadsheet of the spending plan summary that Ruth Ann Devitt put together, attached, which was updated February 12th, 2024. This document can be found on our Engage Kingston page as of tomorrow. We haven't posted it yet. Arts, cultural, and tourism development projects. Of the approximate $1.17 million that's been allocated for this category, 406 has been obligated. Business Development Fund. Of 1.2 million allocated, 1.14 million has been obligated. Housing Action Projects. Of 4.8 million allocated, 2.06 million has been obligated. Nonprofit Services Support. Of the 1.37 million allocated, 1.3 million has been obligated. That's a little off from the other figure. Some of these numbers are changing, so we're going to fix this by tomorrow. Parks and Greenway Fund, thus far, we've obligated $398,000 out of 1.3 million allocation, with the pending projects including pickleball courts. This number will jump dramatically in the coming weeks and months. Public health projects. Of 1.67 million allocated, 447,000 has been obligated. Vital community infrastructure. In this category, $4.76 million has been allocated and $3.4 million obligated. And finally, administration, staff costs, premium, COVID pay to city employees, plan development software, and software for the civil service office amounts to a $667,000 obligation out of a total allocation, $942,000. As always, the Grants Management Office, the Comptroller's Office, and I are available to answer any questions you may have.
All right, are there any questions right now?
I have some
Sarah?
questions. Okay, I have some questions, Bill.
Okay.
I guess my first question is, it's clear that all the money needs to be obligated by the end of 2024, but is there an end date for paying out the obligations? In other words, is there an end date for expenses if funds are obligated?
Yeah, Sarah, that would be the end of 2026.
Okay,
Yeah, so we actually have a 2-year window to expend all monies. We
okay,
just need to have everything earmarked by the end of this year, but this is all federal rules.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and the $38,000 that you say is left to be assigned or allocated?
Uh-huh.
And in the fourth paragraph here, is there a plan for how that would be allocated? Are you receiving applications or open to suggestions or?
I think in other words, you're asking, would we be able to use the money for grants? I would say not at this point. We're closing out the grants phase of the award, and right now we're working to spend the monies internally on various needs that the city has, which would save us from going, to contingency of the fund balance.
Thank you. Let's see. I did have some other questions going through your spreadsheet. Just a few.
Is there another copy for you?
Yeah.
Over there.
Thanks.
So the wayfinding plan under the arts, cultural, and tourism development projects.
Yeah.
That's one where the funds are not yet obligated because you haven't yet put out an RFP. And that's
Right.
going out this month or next month. And what does that plan include? Does that include just a plan to, the plan for the wayfinding, or actually the implementation of any wayfinding materials or signage or anything else that might be recommended?
Mostly it involves figuring out where signage is going to go using available resources. You know, we're talking about kiosks, things of that nature. Right now, Natalie Kiekel from the Grants Management Office and the Engineering Office, Keith Phillips, are working together on formulating a plan that we will use.
Okay,
So,
this-
and just to follow up on that, only approximately $500,000 was made available for wayfinding. We were able to add a few more dollars to that initiative so that we could have a more meaningful wayfinding plan.
this
So we
is really-
expect to be, we expect to have more information on that in the next month or so.
Okay, but if there's some signage recommended or other things, that would come out of the city's budget, or would that come out of these funds?
We're looking to take it out of ARPA, and that's it.
That's what I'm hoping, okay.
Michael?
So regarding the post office park small monument competition, why is that housed in health and wellness instead of either parks or in Kit's office?
I think that was just a judgment call. I think one could argue that a park area where people can relax would contribute to one's personal wellness. But you know, it could be moved into another category if need be, certainly.
What is that? So I apologize if this is a question that's been over a million times. But since
Good.
this is my first ARPA update, how is that process determined of where these projects are managed?
I'm sorry, could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
So for example, it would not be, I see your justification for health and wellness for that specific project. But my question is more generally, how is project management determined?
It's basically determined on available human power resources within the city staff. I would say we have approximately 8 project managers right now in the rec department and DPW and the police department and the fire department and grants management. I've been a project manager for a couple of grant programs. I think we just look at who can do what. I mean, it really comes down to that. Jack Schoonmaker, he's going to be managing the pickleball construction project, which I find very exciting, even though I've never played the game. I want to. And so, you know, that's pretty much what we do. We try, overall, what we've been trying to do anyway is marry one's expertise and ability to the program at hand.
And Emily Flynn already has auspices over other aspects of that park. So it
Yeah.
makes sense to- yeah,
Exactly. Right.
And that's under a different category. Go ahead, Mike.
What is the status of the Elizabeth Manor project? It seems like it's kind of stalled at the county. Is there a due date in which we'll pull the plug on our funding and put it somewhere else, or what's our?
We've let the county know that, you know, we're concerned about deadlines right now.
Mhm.
And as of today, you know, we're committed to a $500,000 expenditure to help the county make Elizabeth Manor happen. But if in fact the county's timetable doesn't match ours in terms of our obligations, you know, we might have to take another look at that. But we're not there yet.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. So remember, if you have more questions, particularly about, you know, organizational things or specific projects, you can feel free to get in touch with Bill. He inhabits the office down there about 36 hours a day now. So, you know, feel free to get in touch. All right. Thank you, Bill.
All right,
you.
thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You take care.
All right, then. Next item is the budget transfer in for the clerk's office. This is to balance accounts and add funds to minor office equipment, which requires a transfer of $2,500 from contingency. Is that, is it listed there, or do you know what this
That's
is?
the 2024 transfer. She is using it to purchase computers, I believe, for the council.
Well,
Some
not
laptops.
mine.
Yeah.
I haven't picked it up yet.
So that comes out of the clerk's budget, not the common council?
Common council doesn't have a line for this.
Okay,
We certainly could look at adding it in the future.
no, we don't need to.
Yeah, she just, Kwame had asked me about it, so. we can discuss this one.
All right, do we have a motion to discuss?
So moved.
Michael Tierney motions, second by Steve Shabbat. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Sarah? And then the last two items. General Fund, New York State Retirement System Employee Benefit Budget Transfer. This is something that John Tierney has cooked up.
So this is to balance out all the state retirement accounts for those members in the employee retirement system. Where I was able to add back $410,000 into contingency for 2023. I confident we don't need that amount, but we'll end up 23 with having a balance in contingency. That's fine. Whatever's left of the roll fund balance.
All right, anybody against adding money here? All right, Sarah?
No, I just had a question.
Sure.
I'm always in favor of adding money to our budget. But, so it's going to contingency because it was, where was the money originally paid? So it was taken out of contingency and now it's being restored?
No, that's just, if you look at like a copy of the budget, you'll see that New York State retirement is budgeted throughout the budget. For
There's
every
money coming
individual
in.
department.
I see.
And this is to the extent that the actual expense was less than what was budgeted,
Okay. Thank
So
you.
that's leftover money. We actually ran into the opposite issue. If you remember, I think it was last month, I had the hospital medical, we're actually over spent on that. This one goes fortunately the other direction to the good.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thanks. No, that, I understand that. That's great.
Any other questions? All right. Then we have a motion to discuss. Second, Sarah Cassidy, the second by Drew Andrews. Any discussion? All right. I didn't read it. It says on behalf of all city departments, request approval of the attached 2020 budgetary transfer totaling $627,627 to reconcile general fund, New York State retirement employee benefit accounts. Total positive financial impact of $410,049 will be used to replenish contingency. So the estimated financial impact is plus $410,049. Did we vote on that?
No, we took a motion, but we didn't.
Oh, okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Dr. Carolyn? Sorry. My pen flew away. All right, last item. Another John Tui project.
This is state retirement transfer for the sewer fund. This is similar to the general fund. This one we were actually under budget. So this one has a negative financial impact of 27. So.
Grr. All right, so this one, are there any questions for John? This one reads, on behalf of all city departments, request approval of the attached 2023 budgetary transfer totaling $142,489 to reconcile sewer fund New York State retirement employee benefit accounts. Total financial impact of $127,274 will be funded through fund balance in the sewer fund. So the financial impact is $127,274. Motion to discuss.
Motion.
Drew Andrews,
Second.
second by Sarah Piasti. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Clearly, great minds thinking alike. All right.
Thank you for the explanation.
Any other issues anyone wants to raise? Any questions, concerns? Ideas for increasing our revenues? Don't require much work.
No, but I've seen some ideas on social media.
All right.
I haven't followed up on it.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second by
Second.
Pat, all in favor?
Aye.
Done.
Night.
Good night. Bye-bye. Bye, Michelle.
Good night.
Thank you.
I hope that wasn't.
No,
Is there a?
no, here.
I would have felt really guilty.
No, but how can I, here, take another one.
Yeah, there's a lot of good.
That was a lot, and the bill was.
What was it you doing in your?
I know, that's a really, it's a really good, it's a really good.
It's really that wayfinding, the wayfinding.
It could be, yeah, that's a lot of money.
Most of it's direct towards driving everybody up to.
Of course you have to say that.
Then mortgage, you might be a little under that.
Well, yeah, they really need to, I think the wayfinding is important.
It
because
is.
This is.
It is, but
Is
the
that-
actual
is this
signs.
Yeah, so, actually, there's one around about.
No, but I mean, there's a whole proposed code
Yeah.
with, the actual signs that they're.
Right.
Yeah.
I
And
know
it makes,
that
it
Kick
makes
Sense is
case
already
so much nicer.
given that no one.
See, yeah, so I'm curious.
That's great. But this was thought open on Sunday.
And why aren't they open? Why aren't they open?
You sell a house, it is a-
I don't either. And so I went around on Sunday, and a lot of them were closed. Probably because I was wandering around. We have to really strong on businesses on Main Street. We started promoting these. The second Saturday and all that, like people would just say, oh, I came in, nobody showed up. They were, mom and pop businesses. And so there had to be peer pressure exerted on these proposals to say, we are not going to promote, you have to be open these days. Open these days, otherwise you're not going to promote.